At this point, we're ready to bring our model into Keyshot, but we have to import our individual models first. So we have a couple of tools that are UV'd and some that are not. For the models that aren't UV'd, I have the base, the water in the base, and now I've added an extra plane that I'm going to turn into water as well in Keyshot. So for that, we really don't need to do much. So we're going to go over to the tool palette and we're just going to hit export. And this exports specifically an OBJ file, which can be opened up in almost any program. And I'm just going to call this RG Rock Grubber Water. I'm going to hit save. That's going to be saved to my desktop. Here, RG base. What I've done is I've merged the water into this base. And you can see the polygroups are really isolated, and Keyshot will be able to differentiate between these two sets of geometry. So again, export RG base. Now, for the rock grubber, it's actually going to be a little bit more complicated. So with a rock grubber, we have to make sure that the poly paint goes with the model. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go into texture map. Now he's already textured, he already has paint on him, and we're going to go to create, and we're going to create a new texture map from the poly paint. So all you really have to do is just click this button, and there it is. There is your texture map. All your painting is right there. So if we click on it, you can see it's all splayed out. And we're going to clone this. And when we hit export, I'm just going to call this RG bod. And I'm going to put that on the desktop as well. Hit save. And as you can see, it's writing the OBJ with polypaint. So it's going to save the model to the desktop with a BMP file, which will be the texture map. That's saved out. Now we're going to look at the eyes. We're going to do the same thing. And we're going to create a new texture from the poly paint. And there it is. It just shows up right there. It's a bit quicker because there's less geometry to worry about. And we're going to clone that texture. And we're going to export again. Eyes. With poly paint, writing file with poly paint. And now we're good to go. Alright, now we're in Keyshot, and I want to begin to import my models. So we're just going to hit import, going to go to the Gnomon Masterclass folder, and let's go to my OBJs. The first thing I want to do is I want to open up the largest files, like the water and the base. So I'm going to open up the water, just hit open. And I want to keep the original size, Y orientation, everything looks good. Make sure keep original size is on. So I'm just going to hit import, and there it is, just shows up. Let's do it again. So I'm going to go to import, OBJs, and let's open up the rock base. Add to scene, import. Alright, that appears to be in the right place. Go to import. Now the body should fit directly on top of that. Alright, import. And if we did this correctly, it should show up with the textures on it, with the color. And there he is. Not bad. And last but not least, let's get the eyes in. Import. Alright, now we're in good shape. So Keyshot is very simple to operate. We have our Keyshot library right here. We have also the Keyshot project tab right here. And I like to display them on either side of my screen. So right now I'd like to discuss getting into the materials of Keyshot. It's incredibly easy to just drag and drop a material onto the surface of your model and quickly change it. You can also edit these materials quite easily as well. Now, you'll notice that as I'm dragging and dropping these materials onto the surface, it's changing and it's rendering in real time. So I want this base to be glass, but I want it to feel like water. And so I'm going to adjust the color simply by going into the material properties. I can adjust the texture of the material as well by creating a fake texture utilizing the bump map. So I'm going to go in here and I am going to upload a image of either rust or let's see what we got here. Rust will work. Now as you can see, it's creating the illusion of geometry, but it's going in the wrong direction. So I'm going to adjust the angle in which the texture is applied. Now here I've added the planar Y, and that looks pretty convincing. I really like that. It'll work well. I might adjust it a bit later, but now I'm going to isolate the model within the model. Here I'm going to click Unlink Material and Show Part in Scene Tree. Now if you're having problems dragging and dropping materials inside models, this is an easy way to do it. As you can see, the portion of the model is highlighted, and I can just drag and drop that material into the model without having to without accidentally changing the rock material. Let's go into the rock as well. Let's see, I actually have a material that I created for that in a previous project. Oh, that works quite nicely. As you can see, the color and the bump have already been added, and these were materials that I got online. Let's turn that back on. And it works pretty well. Not too crazy about the line there. So I'm going to adjust the scale, see if that helps. You can see it's actually creating a wrinkle pattern, a rigid, repetitive pattern across the surface. I'm going to dial that back. And that's nice. It's nice, it's broken up, it feels organic. So I was able to enhance the sculpt of the rock just by using the bump, and I didn't have to worry about poly painting it because I used the same photo to adjust the color. It's pretty effective. You don't always have to sculpt everything out in ZBrush if you know how you're going to render out your model in another program. Looks good. Okay. So now I want to break into the rock rubber itself, and in default that's just what the texture looks like over the model, but I want that to actually be translucent skin. So I'm going to double click the model, edit material, and now I have all of these options. We're going to go into translucent material, and don't be discouraged by the black. We have two options. We can adjust the surface color and the subsurface color, just like with skin. So for the subsurface color, I'm going to want to heat that up quite a bit. So all I have to do is click on it, slide to red, and now we're going to adjust the value of our surface color, and as you can see, the texture is coming back now. I've sped up the film a bit, so it's rendering a bit faster than it naturally would. Human skin takes a long time to render in Keyshot. Let's dial back that and desaturate it. Looks good. You can see the texture map and the color. section. We can also adjust the brightness and the contrast of the texture, but we'll wait until we get that in an environment. I can adjust the specularity under properties, and I also want to alter the eye as well. So we're going to go in, go back to translucent, adjust the subsurface and the surface, and good, the specularity is nice and high, translucency is low. I really want that to glisten when it's affected by light. Looks good. Our materials are looking pretty good, and so now I'd like to discuss the HDRI maps. So Keyshot comes with just a wide range of HDRI maps, and these are basically fake environments that we can put our creature in. By default, this is just the startup environment, but you have all of these other wonderful light setups in here, as well as HDRI maps created from photos, which are my personal favorite. There are different studio lighting setups. You can see how you can just drag and drop it into the frame, and you can see how it's influencing the model. So these light setups have really interesting patterns. They have colors, and there's a lot you can work with. And if we were doing a product design, I might use these specifically for that. It's interesting to see the effect that they have on the model. That's actually really nice. Let's look at the HDRIs from photos. These are some of my favorites. And here's a factory. I really like the lighting on this. So if we were to go into the environment tab here, you get to this incredible wheel, and you can actually turn the environment around, and you can see how it influences the model in different ways. Now in this environment, you can see that the rock and the creature, the water, is picking up quite a few specular highlights, much more than they were picking up in the studio startup HDRI map. And so once I commit to an environment, I'll then adjust my materials again, the areas of the model. But this is actually looking really nice. I'm happy with almost everything, except I would adjust the skin on the rock rubber a bit. Let's look at this outside location. You can see its lighting is much more natural and much more harsh. The light source is actually on the road, so you can see the back of the road is really bright, and that should put our creature in shadow. So we're going to turn this all the way around, and you'll notice that it'll start to light up really quickly. So that's an interesting look as well. So there's definitely a lot to pick from here. Let's see what else we have. Here's another industrial area. And I really like this one because this has a nice green light on it, and that's very creepy and might be appropriate for what we're doing. It's really moody. Another thing that I really like about Keyshot is that it works like ZBrush with regards to being able to move around your character. You just click on the space and drag either your mouse or your pen to go around the object, to turn it around. And aside from that, you can actually just move the camera under the camera tab by adjusting the distance sliders, the orbit sliders. incline. We're looking up at him. And I personally like to pick a look point, a focal point, really. It's actually like a marker of where the eye line is. And it's just a great, fast way to set up your angle. Let's increase the zoom in a bit. Or rotate down. And I just want to find a dynamic view to render out this creature. Remember, for the first pass, you really want to show as much of the character as possible while still having a dramatic image. It's very challenging. Let's adjust our perspective. Let's go back to camera. On default, perspective is pretty severe in Keyshot, so we're just going to dial that back. It'll help us more accurately pose our design. I want to really see what's going on in my picture plane, so I'm going to move this over. Let's try to find a good angle. Getting close. Yeah, I'm really liking the lighting on this. So at this point I'm speeding up the footage again. It takes a little bit of exploration to find the right angle that you want. I've noticed that this little corner of the room is really nice and dramatic, but I'm moving my camera around and trying to decide where I want to start my movie from. And we're going to be jumping into the movie next. And so I want to make sure that I have a nice, dynamic, orthographic turntable that shows a lot of the character. Zooming in and out, just trying to figure out what's the best way to show him. Now you can also turn off the environment. I find it distracting, and replace it with a black color or any color that you want. When doing a turntable, I just want to focus on the creature itself. Here I zoomed in just a little bit, and we're going to move into animation soon. It's a good angle.